Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this wonderful morning, and welcome to yet another session of Clusters Talks. And my name is Javila Kropaite. I will be your moderator today, and we will be talking about biotechnologies, about life sciences, EU Life Sciences Strategy, the forthcoming Biotech Act, and the European health data space. We will get the latest news about these documents that the European Commission is considering, but we will also try to see the role of clusters there. We all know that the European policy agenda for life sciences and biotechnology seeks to unlock innovation, strengthen biomanufacturing, and ensure that Europe does remain a global leader in health, agriculture, and industrial biotechnology. It addresses investment gaps, regulatory bottlenecks, and the need for stronger innovation ecosystems, while also supporting at the same time the green and digital transitions. So I have mentioned the initiatives such as the EU Life Sciences Act, the forthcoming Biotech Act, and the European Health Data Space. The agenda aims to accelerate the scale-up of breakthrough technologies, enhance sustainable production, and secure Europe's leadership in critical biotechnologies. To explore all of these opportunities, we are welcoming you to this cluster talk, during which you will hear the news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform first. We will then have a presentation by Senior Policy Analyst, Joint Research Center, European Commission, Ferenc Marovka, and then that will be followed by a panel debate where cluster representatives mostly will join in and say what they have to say about the cluster's role in the process. We will present funding opportunities that currently exist, as always, as well. So that is very roughly the agenda for today. Housekeeping rules or the tech tips, Slido to launch a poll. Whenever you see a QR code for Slido, just scan it and it will take you to the question we will be asking, and the question will be used to deepen the content to find out what you think about it and what you think about a specific question we are asking. Zoom Q&A function to ask questions, and the chat function to comment or share links, or as you have really gotten used to doing, saying good morning also works from whichever country you are. You always, I've noticed recently, you always really like to mention the country you're from and to say something, and that also happens in this chat. This is also where we post all of the links that are mentioned in some of the presentations. So let's use this chat. It's really important. If you want to speak, you can always raise your hand and we will give you the floor. The session is being recorded, and the recording will be found and published on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. That is it for the housekeeping rules. For the tech tips, we will move to the news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, and I will give the floor to Nina Hoffman.
Thanks, Jamila, and good morning to everyone. Let's get started. We have a survey open for shaping the European Cluster Conference 2026. You can help by shaping the program, saying what kind of preferences and topics you have, make us maybe some speaker recommendations from the cluster community and from beyond. So this is a very helpful survey to have your say in drafting the program of the conference. The survey deadline is the 12th of November, and you can find the link in the chat to contribute. In case you haven't seen it yet, the Commission has unveiled its 2026 work program, which sets out a series of actions to help build a more sovereign and independent Europe, with 38 new policy objectives and also many legislative initiatives that have a significant simplification dimension. So very much worth looking into what the Commission is planning for 2026. You can also find the document in the chat. We have seen the start of 60 new Euro clusters, which have taken up the work now. With over 42 million euros, these initiatives bring together clusters, SMEs, and also research organizations from across Europe to work on strengthening value chains and on the green and digital transition, and of course, increasing competitiveness. And a lot of that money is also will be distributed directly to SMEs through open calls to foster innovation in the uptake of advanced technologies, build capacities, and drive Europe's transformation towards sustainable, digital, and resilient economy. So have a look at who these Euroclusters are. You can find them published on the ECCP, and we will also have future EU clusters talks where we will invite the Euroclusters to present themselves. For the ECCP investment survey, this is still open, where you can inform us about any major investments that were attracted by European clusters. This is a very short survey where you can give us quick feedback on what kind of investments you've attracted in the last years. And this will help for the final report for this year on the ECCP. So if you could give us your quick feedback, we would very much appreciate it. There are two consultations open that I would like to mention. One is on public procurement. The revision of the public procurement directives foresees to enable giving preference to European products in public procurement, as well as to modernize and simplify procurement rules. To give your feedback, you can do that via the Have Your Say portal. The link is in the chat until the 26th of January. So that's the first one to give your feedback on, the revision of public procurement directives. And the other one is the call for evidence and public consultation for the Advanced Materials Act. Here you can help shape the future Advanced Materials Act, which seeks to speed up production processes and the journey from discovery to market. And this call for evidence and public consultation is open until the 12th of January. Also via the Have Your Say portal. The link is in the chat. The deadline to send in the papers for the research conference on the EU single market was extended to the 17th of November. So if you as a research institution or someone from your network would like to contribute in this call for papers for the conference, they can still do so. In the next 12 days, the event will be held in Brussels on the 19th of March, and the focus should be on the interplay between the single market and industrial policies. So many potential topics that you can see on the screen, for example, designing industrial policy in the fast-evolving global context, national and regional policies within the EU framework, or deepening the integration within the EU single market. Have a look at this in case this is of interest to you. Next week, there will be the SME Assembly taking place in Copenhagen, Denmark, and we wanted to let you know that you can also follow this event online. It will take place on the 12th until the 10th until the 12th of November. There will be high-level panels and discussions, expert roundtables, workshops. A lot of that will be possible to follow online, so you can still register for this and have a look and follow the SME conference, which takes place once a year as part of the European SME Week. Another event that is taking place already in 2 days is the webinar, A Stronger EU Chemicals Industry, presentation of the action plan organized by DG Grow. And here the session will give you an outline of the main measures that are planned to strengthen the sector's competitiveness, sustainability, and resilience. You can follow this webinar via the registration link in the chat and see what is planned for the next steps of how to implement all the plans for the chemical ecosystem through this action plan. And last but not least, also to remind you of upcoming ACCP events, the one in Pamplona, which is happening next week in Spain. We also have a Clusters Meet Regions matchmaking event in Regensburg in Germany at the end of the month. And we go to Copenhagen with the Clusters Meet Regions on the 3rd and 4th of December. So you're most welcome to attend these events, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. And with that, I hand over to you, Gilles.
Thank you very much, Nina. We will move to our keynote presentation of today, Choose Europe for Life Sciences, a strategy for European life sciences by Policy Officer at DG GROW at European Commission, Ferenc Marofka. We are all ears. I hope you can hear us, and we will hear you in a second as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the invite and thank you for the introduction. Indeed, my name is Ferenc Marofka. Very good morning to everyone. And I'm a policy officer in DG GROW dealing with the health industrial ecosystem there. So in all our policies, we want to promote the health industry from our side. And well, starting maybe on the strategy for European life sciences, I would like to give a little bit of a political context. I think it's a well-known fact for all of you that the mandate of the current Commission is really focusing very much on the competitiveness of the EU or the competitiveness of our bloc. I think Mario Draghi and others in their reports identified key bottlenecks and emphasized the importance that we have to really improve our competitiveness. And this is the key theme of the political guidelines of Ursula von der Leyen for the mandate. In the next one, please. It's not only us who decide whether we want to have our competitiveness improved or not, but we are in, of course, a global environment with geopolitical tensions. So we have fierce competition in different forms, from allies and less allies. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that the economic reality is really a little bit bleak. We were really at the GDP level trailing together with the US until 2010, but since then we see that there is an increasing gap between the US and the Europe, and also China is catching up very fast. So what shall we do? I think one of the key sectors for competitiveness, it was recognized, it's the life sciences. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, so life sciences is really a key sector for us. I guess all who are here know it very well, that this sector is responsible for almost 20% of the total R&I investment of the EU. There are around 30 million jobs in life sciences, and it has a huge added value to the GDP. But more interestingly, I think it grows faster than the European GDP. So this is really the horse that pulls, I think, among the industrial sectors, and it was well recognized. There are many actions and talks about how we can improve or life science industry. If we move to the next slide, so what do we mean by life sciences? Basically everything that deals with living organisms. It can start from a very little cell, or it can be a complete ecosystem. And basically we do cover health, we do cover food, we do cover agriculture, also industrial applications, bio-based solutions, and everything that ensures that we can be sustainable for the environment as well. If we move to the next slide, then I will talk a little bit about all the initiatives that are blossoming in this new mandate. So early on in 25, we started with a competitiveness compass, which basically set the direction for all the actions that are needed to improve our competitiveness. A very important part of it is, of course, money. So we had a communication on the Savings and Investment Union, how to unlock basically the lot of private or institutional investments and use it to improve our industry. There will be new pieces of legislation coming out on this field as well. Importantly, we have the Critical Medicines Act, which was published already in March. That was a very rapid lawmaking for the sake to ensure that we have a very good supply chains for the critically important medicines for us. And there are many sectoral so-called omnibus simplification packages which aim to reduce the regulatory burden for all economic operators in the Union. And they are coming in separate stages. Different packages are coming out. I think one critically important communication which came out was the EU Startup and Scale-up Strategy. That's, I think, a very good plan how to improve all our EU companies and those that are going and or entrepreneurs, but not only how to start a business, but also how to scale it up and ensure all the ingredients that are necessary for their successes. And within this context came in July the European Life Science Strategy, but you have to see this is not the end of the story, because there are quite some other acts and strategies in the pipeline. Just to name a few, the European Innovation Act, there will be an EU Biotech Act 1 and 2. So EU Biotech Act 1, which will be adopted December this year already, will focus on the most urgent, mostly pharmaceutical related issues, biotech issues, which require urgent action. And in the EU Biotech Act 2, that will be more cross-sectoral, that will deal more the non-health sectors as well. It will only come in the third quarter of 2026. This is how to find a balance between urgency and also breadth of scope. There will be also targeted revision of the medical devices regulation and in vitro medical devices regulation already coming in this year. And also 25 November, we will have our bioeconomy strategy, focusing again on the non-health part of the biotech sector. And let's not forget that in the background, we have the ongoing negotiations on the reform of the EU pharmaceutical legislation, and the European health data space is already adopted, but it has to be implemented. So now a lot of implementing acts are being drafted and adopted also. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so let's focus on this very concrete strategy, the Choose Europe for Life Sciences. So this is a communication. What is a communication? This is not a legislative proposal. It's not changing any existing regulation or not adding any new laws, but it includes non-legislative and directly implementable actions, and it also lays out the roadmap for new legislative initiatives. So it's basically a little bit of a summary of what we have done, what we are going to do in the legislative field, and also includes several non-legislative actions which we could do without the strategy as well, but it makes a commitment. It gives stakeholders, I think, a strong signal that what are the aspects, what are the challenges that we will take up in the coming years. Yes, let's move to the next slide. So if we want to summarize very briefly the strategy, I think it's quite simple. We want to position the EU as the world's most attractive place for life sciences by 2030. It includes optimizing, of course, the R&I ecosystem. So we have, I think, a lot of strength here. We have a vibrant, super academic system. We create a lot of publications and patents. So it's there. We want to, just optimize the efforts and strengthen this sector. Then we want to ensure smooth and rapid market access for life science innovations. So there is no regulatory burden. There are no necessary red tapes, or there are no too much hassle for businesses to get their products to the market. And also we have to work on the uptake of the innovation, and we have to boost the trust of the population. That is also part of the strategy. And hopefully by 2030, we will be really the most attractive place for life sciences. If we go to the next slide, so the life science strategy has around 30 actions. Some of them we call the flagship actions, the more important ones. I really don't want to go into the details of it because I don't think we have the time for that, but you can have the communication, you can easily find it, and I think we have provided the link for that as well. But just the key topics, I think, on the European arena, I think the flagship actions are really that we want to improve the clinical research environment, meaning we want to ensure that multi-country clinical trials do and can happen easily in Europe, and we want to provide infrastructure for that. We also recognize that cell and gene therapies and also novel advanced therapies are probably the key technologies for the future, and we want to ensure that we can really rely on Europe's leading academic position to make it reality, make them products. And we want to link the ATMP centers and create the centers of excellence on that. Well, we also want to break some silos between the different biotech or life science branches. So One Health approach is part of it. The example is absolutely the antimicrobial resistance. If we want to fight antimicrobial resistance, we have to deal with pharmacology. We have to see the veterinary food and feed aspects of it. We have to see them in the environment. And if we address all the issues, that is the way to tackle the challenge. So I think it's true for other challenges as well. We want to use like a holistic approach to life sciences. In today's world, of course, you can't imagine advancing science without AI and using the power of data. So for that reason, we will work with member state authorities and create a European life sciences RNA data assembly just to help to create a critical mass of data which are interoperable and usable for the actors. Next slide. So we need also to focus on careers and skills. And as mentioned, we will promote an innovation responsive regulation, and the first signs of that will be the EU Biotech Act and the regulatory simplification for medical devices and in vitro diagnostics, which is coming still, a part of it's coming still this year. Also very important, financing, and there will be many ways, I think, at EU level, how to make more funding available for startups and scale-ups and companies. But in the life science strategy, what we are committed to do is to bring together life science investors and corporates. So it's a kind of matchmaking, helping a frictionless move of the capital between investors and companies. And also, probably very importantly, we have an action aimed at improving the governance of the life science strategy. So there will be a group that oversees this whole strategy. And then we see the different silos also within the commission. So the different departments, not always perfectly coordinated interactions. So we want to improve that, but we also want to do it with the stakeholders and the member states. So we have a coherent strategic view, and we make sure that we go in the same direction when it comes to life sciences. And finally, I think, well, what is the budget that is available? This strategy relies on Horizon Europe, and actually on Horizon Europe we have around 10 billion euros annual support. So this is what we can do from the current multi-annual financial framework, which is going until 27. And we do hope that in the new MFF, life sciences will also be a very key and important fundable sector. Thank you very much for the time. Of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listing all of the strategies. And I wanted to ask you, because there are so many of them, so much regulation, so many documents, so many strategies. Is there one that we should be following without a fear to misinformation about what is going on in other strategies?
Well, so the strategies in their nature, they are communication. So that is, I think, an important indication of what we are doing. It's good reading, but probably what is more powerful is the actual acts or pieces of regulation. So if you want to see like a hierarchy, I think Biotech Act, Innovation Act, pharmaceutical legislation reform, medical devices reform, these have, I think, a more direct impact. So first things first, I would focus on them, what the implications of these acts and regulations are for my business. And for the strategies and communications and the actions in it, I think these are more optional. What is that I can take part in? What is that can benefit me? So how can I join and benefit from that? That would be my approach as a business.
Thank you. I think we have a raised hand from Natalia, if that's correct. Natalia, would you want to speak up and ask a question?
Good morning to everybody. My name is
Good
Natalia.
morning.
Good morning. Can you hear me well? Yes?
Yes, very well.
Great. So my name is Natalia Hraszkiewicz-Birkemeyer. I'm a scientific advisor for DG Santé within the European Commission. I have one question related to the role of clusters, and first of all, the life sciences clusters, but also biotech clusters within the context of the life sciences strategy. Could you elaborate on this point? Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you, Natalia.
I'm not entitled to share information yet, but I do think, and I think what was already mentioned in the public consultation for the Biotech Act, that clusters are very important partners, I think, in the Biotech Act as well. So I can assure you that there are intentions to use the existing clusters and the network of clusters and find efficiencies and find roles to improve the competitiveness of the life science sector. I think the life science strategy itself, it was more focused on RNI, not necessarily focusing on clusters, but this is because we had to share a little bit which act or strategy does what.
What about the 28th regime mentioned in the EU program 2026 regarding life sciences and biotech?
Well, the 28 regimes, I think that will be a very important improvement. So we are working also on that to make sure that there is a European entity which makes it very easy to start and run a business. This still has to come up.
One last thing for me, you have mentioned, you have talked about the strategy to position the EU as the world's most attractive place for life sciences by 2030. And in that strategy, among the challenges, and I think you have mentioned that issue yourself, talking about some other strategy, is a struggle to scale up in Europe for innovative companies. This is something that we talk about, and these clusters talks a lot as well. What is being done to overcome that?
Well, we already have done something in the startup and scale-up strategy. So still from this budget, where originally it was not foreseen, that we have a scale-up fund. I think when it was designed, that was like a least prominent issue. But I think still from 26, there will be a fund dedicated to scale up available around 5 billion euros. If I'm not mistaken, from the European Innovation Council's budget for scale-up activities. So I think that is the start, and we will see what's coming in the competitiveness fund and in the new multi-annual financial framework. But scale up is definitely on the top of the agenda. So people are thinking heavily to make funding available and also favorable regulation available for that.
Thank you so much, Ferenc. I hope you can stay with us to hear the clusters themselves, what they have to say about their involvement. Thank you for your presentation. We will now launch a Slido. This is a QR code that you have probably scanned already. You can also just go to slido.com and put in life sciences as a hashtag, and it will take you directly to where you have to be, or we are happy for you to be there. How directly are you or your organization involved in the life sciences or biotechnology sector? This is just for us to get some knowledge about who you are and how involved you are in the topic. Deeply involved, indirectly involved, not involved, an interested observer. These are the options that you are choosing. Thank you for answering that question. Deeply involved are most of you, nearly half. Some of you are indirectly involved. We collaborate with organizations in these fields. There are some who are not involved. They are joining to learn more about this topic. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for joining. There are a few interested observers who follow developments but are not active in the sector. Welcome as well. But most of you, actually more than half, are deeply involved. You work directly in life sciences or biotech research and innovation. So that's good to know. Thank you so much. And let's move to the question number 2. Which of these areas do you think will have the greatest impact on Europe's competitiveness in life sciences? Data and AI for biomedical innovation, streamlined regulation, investment and scale-up opportunities for startups, skills and talent development, or something else. If you want to specify, you can do that in the chat because Slido does not allow that option directly. This is just an other option that you can choose, and then go to chat and expand on it if you wish. But you can also do the multiple choice and choose investment and scale-up opportunities for startups as the most important area, which will have the greatest impact on Europe's competitiveness in life sciences. Data and AI for biomedical innovation is second. Skills and talent development is third, 22% each, actually. Other IPR, Mate is saying, thank you for that response. Which of these areas do you think will have the greatest impact on Europe's competitiveness in life sciences? So it is mostly investment and scale-up opportunities for startups and data and AI for biomedical innovations. I think we are good to go. Having that in mind, we can continue our discussions and do a cloud question before we move into panel debate. And thank you, by the way, everybody, for being so active and interactive and asking questions and posting comments too. Which aspects should be prioritized in future EU regulations to foster innovation while ensuring safety and public trust? This may sound like a big and complicated question, but it actually, we are asking you which aspects, according to your understanding, should be prioritized in the future EU regulation so that innovation can also stay safe and public trust is maintained. Trust, simplicity, pragmatism, health. Some participants are still typing, so I'm going to wait a couple of seconds and see. Trust should be prioritized in future EU regulations to foster innovation. Simplicity and health. And there are some others like biotechnology, preventive health, transparency, speed and quality of services, financing, biotechnology. Lots of responses. Thank you very much. But trust, simplicity, and transparency, we can say are the 3 keywords. Trust, health, and simplicity, actually. It's changing a bit since you have really gotten into this typing exercise, and Thank you so much for that, because by being interactive, you can follow us more closely and can ask all of the wonderful questions that you have been asking. So simplicity, health, transparency, biotechnology, trust. Trust has not stayed as the most important keyword, but it's still important. So thank you very much for that, for participating in that poll. We will move to the panel debate, and we will have several participants with us, and I'm going to present them now. From CEO from Biovia, Anne van Hezel is with us. Investment advisor Iris Örn is with us. Managing Director, Cluster Life Science Krakow, Kazimierz Murzin is with us. And Managing Director, Biotech Cluster Development, Ralf Huss. Welcome, everybody. Let's start with you, Iris, I think, and you can all turn your cameras on, and let's hear a couple of words on what you do, and if you could present yourself in a minute.
Okay, thank you so much, and good morning to everybody. My name is Iris, and I'm working for Business Region Göteborg, which is the Economic Development Office of Gothenburg in West Sweden, and I'm specifically working with foreign direct investments. So my work focusing on attracting capital investments, new establishments, and new partnerships within the area of life sciences to West Sweden. So it's very much a combination of promotion, the ecosystem that we have in the area of life sciences, but also making sure that we get deals signed. So this is more or less what I do.
How would you define your work in relation to clusters?
Okay, so to be honest, Sweden is a small country, so very much of what we do with regard to international partnerships and investments, we do it within the frame of the Nordic region. And life sciences, as you all know, we are not talking about a specific biotech companies, but what we often try to promote is the whole ecosystem, because life science companies is nothing without all other players like service providers, science parks, healthcare system, and so on. So we work very much in clusters, especially when we try to promote the region. In the beginning, we focus very much on cluster partnerships, and I would say this is especially important when we are talking about Asia and the US, where relationships are not obvious and it actually requires a lot of, I would say, it's long term. It's long term, but I think, and giving some kind of feedback to what have been said today, I think that we have a very good collaboration within Europe. Cluster have been working for ages with everything, but I think looking at the situation right now, as it was mentioned in the beginning, the competition and the challenges that we have is specifically with Asia and the US. I think that it is time for clusters, despite the frameworks that are now being put in place, it is time for clusters to work more, I would say, efficiently, to try to focus more on impact and concrete outcomes. I think that we have sometimes during the last years been focused where collaboration is the outcome itself. You understand what I mean? Just because we collaborate with believe we are doing the job, but I think that we are in a time where we need to go to what is the real outcome, what is the impact and the relevance of what we do. And I have been involved in many European projects along the years, and sometimes I'm now being very concrete, but sometimes
that's very welcome. Thank you.
Number of workshops, a number of joint activities, and so on are good to have. But at the end of the day, we are right now, and you have noticed it, in a situation with many of our companies are actually getting bankrupt because it's a lack of funding globally. It's not only Europe. So it's actually time for us to come with measures that make an impact now. So it's important to have all the frameworks that have been mentioned, but I think that we need in the coming months, years to start working on concrete solutions for the now, okay? Because many of the things that have been mentioned takes time to implement.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being so direct and so straight to the point already. So let's focus more on the impact, Iris says, and let's make an impact now. Collaboration is not an end result, right? It shouldn't be. Let's hear a little bit of an introduction from Anne now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Anne van Gijssel, and I'm the CEO of BioVia. We are a very recent cluster located in the north part of Belgium, Flanders, because we actually brought together all the different smaller clusters on the different life sciences, be it biotechnology or medical technologies. And we brought everything together in one health cluster, which I think is definitely the way forward. I also hear it from the Commission. And so today we represent human health, which includes the 4Ds, drugs, devices, diagnostics, and digital tools, but also the agricultural technologies and the bio-based industrial biotech. We are now with some 400 members. I think the strength that we have in our region is really we have homegrown pharmaceutical companies, which are very important innovation drivers. But our organization really brings together all stakeholders, the innovators. We have a very active biotech and a growing medical devices and health tech companies ecosystem. And of course, through our national or through the regional administrations, we have a small budget so we can fund collaborative projects in human health. I think the reason why I think Europe is so important, of course, with the strategies that have been explained, I think they're essential for us and for the clusters, but especially also for our companies. And the collaboration is indeed not an endpoint, but it's a very important tool for us, for all of us to use. And one of the things that we've initiated a few years ago while we were still separate is the Health Tech Investor Summit. And today it's an event that we do with 20 different European regions and where we actually connect health tech entrepreneurs with investors from all over Europe. And we're also able to attract a few from the US and from Asia. And I think that really symbolizes how important it is. This is done with, this year the EIC is also involved because, of course, with the possibilities they provide for startups and scale-ups, I think there is quite some opportunities for Europe to address immediately 20 countries and have all the stakeholders present. There is quite some collaboration starting, but that really showed us that we really touched upon, how can I say, a gap in Europe and how the collaboration is so important for our companies. And I just wanted to give you, since we're going into examples, I thought it would be a good idea to share this with you.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to also ask you about if you share the sentiment with Iris. I understand that you say collaboration is not an endpoint, but a very important tool. But what about the rest of what she said, that we just have to make an impact now and all of the framework? Yes, it is important, but not that important in the end, as far as I understand.
Well, a framework is important. I think we need to have something that brings a broader strategy. But of course, as always, companies, clusters, we want to move faster than the frameworks, and because we really are confronted, and I think Iris has the same vision on that, you're confronted with the real issues. Companies that do not have wonderful technologies, but do not have the means to scale. There are still TRL levels that make it that do not find funding. The private capital investors are really slow because there's the uncertainty. So if we want to support that innovation, and if we want to make Europe the most attractive continent for life sciences. I think we have the ingredients, they are there, but we cannot stall by making too much or spending too much time on framework. We really have to implement all these things one by one. And I understand this takes time. And I think then moving forward with the MDR and the Biotech Act already this year will help. It will definitely help if people see concrete things happening. But it's I don't know how the expression is. It's 5 after 12, we would say in Dutch, but I'm sure it's in other languages pretty much the same thing. We really have to move fast. But I feel there is a willingness, and if we can collaborate even better, maybe it can go faster. But implementation is where we're at now, for sure. I agree with that with Iris.
Alenka agrees as well. She says in the chat. Let's see what Kazimierz has to say.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to this speech. My name is Kazimierz Murzyn. I'm Managing Director of Cluster Life Science Kraków. The initiative, which has started its operations as a group, as a project almost 20 years ago. And actually, I would start from the possibly your question. If I agree with Iris, yes, we've been starting actually just recently thinking about that, in which way we are supporting our members. And actually, we came to conclusion that we focus on collaboration, but we should focus on outcome from that collaboration. And this is the lessons actually we learned from. I personally learned from being recently in many places, like in Gothenburg just a few weeks ago, and in Barcelona, and many places, and looking at what's going on. And the conclusion is also that we are focusing on. Because we are focusing on collaboration in different aspects, like for example, in our cluster, we organize collaboration through. We have as a members, we have silos like academia, like businesses, like hospitals, like business support organizations, like government. But we foster collaboration through organizing or facilitating so-called special interest groups about some kind of subjects, like digital twin, like innovative hospital, etc. But what we observe, it's still fragmentation of these activities. So from our perspective, it seems like we are pretty sure that we have fantastic ideas and we are implementing very good activities next to other fantastic ideas and activities which are not crossing, and we are not supporting each other. I mean,
but so how do we remove that fragmentation? How do we join everything together?
Very good question. We are not now working on that, and actually in our region, we have so fortunate, let's say, that we are in collaboration with regional authorities. We have established so-called regional platform of specializations. We are heading the platform of human health, but there are 4 other platforms. 3 of them are led by national key clusters, and that provides kind of platform for collaboration, also for exchanging those collaboration amongst those platforms. But even within one platform, like human health, there is a lot of fragmentation. Let's say we are considering from the very beginning the cluster organization as in the concept of, in the notion of learning organizations. So we will not introduce this. We will learn how to do it. That's the position. We are implementing. For many years, I have been personally fostering the systems thinking as a way to proceed forward. And even our last conference, which we organized in the scope of Polish presidency in May, Life Science for EU, it was also taught in a way that to foster systems approach, holistic approach to many aspects. And I'll be later on talking a little bit about outcomes of that conference. So coming back to your question, or to the notion. It starts with few, let's say, not several, but just a few leadership persons or organizations in the region which take a lead in the subject. But those persons and those subjects are somehow interconnected, and there is no way to escape from collaboration between sectors, between silos, because we are showing for example, in this moment we are developing so-called development roadmaps, collaboration development roadmaps, which are focusing on specific subjects like digital twin or diagnostics or prophylactics. But still, the plan is that will be kind of picking up those links between those subjects. The other way to focus on to get rid of this fragmentation is that we are not focusing at the moment at the sectors like let's say digital health. We are focusing on outcome from these sectors. So that's the in fostering collaboration between cluster. So let me tell just a few words about the cluster. Life Science
Yes,
Krakow.
just a couple of words. Yes.
Exactly. Life Science Krakow in Krakow, as the name announces, we have 6 groups of interest. I also mentioned those groups of interest. We have 140 members, still growing, but actually as a cluster organization, we are working not only for those members, but also for regional development in life sciences. And we focus on health and quality of life, on collaboration for health and quality of life, which means we accept also the partners and then we support collaborations in any sector, any opportunities, R&D opportunities, and then transfer to the practice where the health and quality of life is important. We are also the national representative for Poland of EIT Health since 3 years, and we try to connect, and we are trying to connect those many other clusters or organizations in Poland in order to create a more stronger, not again siloed organization being placed in one region only.
Thank you. Ralph, I want to hear a couple of words about your cluster, and then we will move to Iris again because she will have to leave a little earlier. And then I will ask you, Ralph, if you agree with fragmentation being a problem.
Yeah, I keep it short. Thank you very much. Pleasure for being here. My name is Ralf Huss. I'm the managing director of BioM, which is the Biotech Cluster Development Organization for Bavaria in Munich. We don't have a real membership structure, so we are heavily funded by the Bavarian state government and by the Chamber of Commerce and the Ministry of Economics. And basically, I agree on basically everything that was said. And just I want to make one comment. That our cluster, which does exist for 27 years, the companies or some of the companies in our cluster have raised up to 1 billion on an annual base for Series B and Series C investment. But this takes a long time, this takes focus, and this takes strong partnerships in the United States. And I think some of the issues, and as I said, I agree with most of the things that have been said before, is that we have to play our international tiles. We have to bring in investors. We have to develop pull effects into our ecosystem and in Europe. So I'm happy to allude on this a little bit later.
Thank you very much. Iris, what do you think then? What are these actions that we should be taking? Anne has mentioned that Biotech Act should help us to be more concrete. Do you agree?
I think so. And I was thinking about something the other day. I have now been working within this position for 15 years, which is I've seen a lot of things. And this is also a question to the European Commission and to all of you. In Sweden, at least, we were very much in silos, meaning that when we are talking about life sciences, okay, it's life science, biotech, medtech, diagnostics. But what we have been seeing now when we are abroad and working with other countries is that there is more focus on technologies rather than, life science, automotive, clean tech, etc. And the question is whether perhaps we can find our competitiveness in working more with other clusters, meaning could be life science IT, life science clean tech, life science mobility, but focusing more on technologies like quantum AI, etc., etc. You understand what I mean? So I have the feeling that we are still very much life sciences, and this is going so fast. So we need to make sure that we also create cluster collaborations between industries, because I think we are going to be stronger and faster.
But have you seen, do you know, maybe there are some successful examples already of clusters accelerating biotech solutions, supporting biomanufacturing at scale?
We are trying to do it in Sweden. We are trying to do it in Gothenburg. We have a new, call it Health Innovation City, where we are trying to gather companies from all sectors, but that have the healthcare and the life science as their end. Say, related to when EU works with some missions, that you have a mission and then everybody is working towards it. That's something that we are trying to build. It takes time. When you go to Asia, for instance, you see that you have companies there, clusters there, and I think that we might also see it more in the Baltic region, that you have food tech, nutrition, biotech, etc., in the same cluster. In the Nordics, at least, we are still very much in silos, okay? But I believe that even though we are trying to create more this kind of cross-sectorial collaborations, especially now very much related to AI, computing, etc. It takes time, but I think that that's something that we can do now with the new calls coming, trying to actually have more integration between industries and sectors, also for speed. So we don't need to build everything from the beginning, because it might be companies from other sectors or other clusters that are more advanced in specific things that are also related to life sciences. Because in our sector, it's not just about new drugs and new services. We are also affected for things like supply chain, digitalization, market access, etc. So that seems that there are things that are going on in all sectors. Just to say something, that we don't need to focus life science.
Okay, so if we, before you have to go, just one last question to you. If there was one concrete action that you would advise that EU adopted in the next years, would you immediately know what that concrete action should be?
For us, to be honest, this is difficult, okay? But if I'm representing the companies and the thing that we have been struggling for so long time, we can talk about within EU, but I think that we need to put more efforts in implementing and validating our products within our ecosystem, because it's the only way of creating robustness so that our companies can go out and be competitive. So right now we are trying to help them, but they are too small, too weak. So I think that if there's something that has to be done, how can we put pressure on the healthcare system, on the system, to make sure that our innovations are primarily implemented and tested and validated within Europe?
So validating the products, our products in the ecosystem.
But I understand it's difficult, because now we are talking about the life science industry, and the healthcare sector, it's living in another completely regulated procurement, etc. environment. So I don't know how to remove barriers between the industry and the system. That's where we have to do things. But I suppose it is one thing is the innovation R&D part of EU of our clusters, and the other thing is the healthcare system as such, which is living in other regulations. So I don't know how to remove that barrier. Whether some, I have not the solution, but I think that it might be there. That's the way other countries in Asia, etc., are doing it. Test it, validate it within your country, within your region, and then go out stronger.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your remarks and your insights. Ralph, what do you think? Maybe you could share some good examples already of clusters accelerating biotech solutions, or maybe you would like to expand on what we have just heard about the need to validate our products in the ecosystem and remove barriers between the industry and the system.
Yeah, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to make a few statements. First of all, I have to say, keep this disclaimer: we are entirely focused on biopharmaceutical development, so our development times are way longer, cost much more money. So we are not, I cannot allude much on medtech. And of course, we use digital solutions and AI to accelerate drug development, to choose the right drugs. I think what Iris also mentioned is about validating products or solutions or products on the European market is something that we see also in drug development, which is a lack of clinical trials here. So they are not harmonized. There are some kind of loopholes in certain, let's say, countries, which make it sometimes difficult. And for startup companies who have to manage their resources, they easily go to other places where the let's say the clinical trials are developed and executed faster with, let's say, less quality. And I think so in terms of validating, in our terms, this is clinical trial approval and clinical trial progress. I think we have to focus on that. We have to make this easier. We have to have standardized regulations through all our European countries. And I think this is from one of the last slides that I saw from Ferrand, is that we have the research and innovation tool. We have the smooth and rapid market acceleration. And but I think what's missing is this step in between. How can we validate our products? And in our case, this is the clinical trial approval and submission, and this all belongs to the harmonized and efficient regulatory framework, which is missing. So, and this comes again with that most of the money is not here in Europe. So I think we hardly see any kind of going public for European companies. They hardly do not exist in the life science space. So what we are all desperately waiting for is big corporates and coming in and doing a merger, an acquisition, and pulling them out of Europe. And I think we have to turn this around. We have to bring them in here, and we have to give them a framework that allows the entire value chain to be started, executed, and completed here in Europe.
Thank you. Anne, do you agree with that?
Yes, actually, I do agree. But I just want to go back to what Iris said. Collaborating and bringing in other technologies, I think it is important. And by joining forces with all the different clusters in Flanders, some of them were in existence. The pharma cluster was already there for 20 years. If you bring in all new technologies, and we do try to collaborate, we have a very good institute that's in chip production, and lots of things are happening there. But what you also see is that as soon as these technologies are confronted with the reality of bringing innovations into the market, and here we are again, the validation, finding the first client, that is really, really hard. They come from another world where they're not confronted with a healthcare system that's so complex, that's different in every European country. Reimbursement, some parts it's government driven, other parts they're private players. So that really stops a lot of innovation at this point in time. And I think you see this Flanders, and what we have from regional support for R&D is really strong. But there is no funding available to validate your first and find your first client. The clinical trials, I could not agree more with Ralph than what he has been listing. It's the R&D we're great at. I think you can really see that everywhere, but there's really a showstopper, if I can say it, there in that validation. And also in our regional with our regional agencies, we really struggle to explain to them that the health environment or the market, so to speak, it's so specific, it's so difficult. You cannot just write a simple business model and you'll have your product on the market. It doesn't work like that. And we see a lot of companies that struggle, that block, or go immediately to the United States and do find the funds to actually get on the market very fast. And I'm very happy for them, for those companies who actually succeed. But I hope they come back with some of their profit and keep investing in Europe. So for me, the bottleneck is really there. Implementation, finding your first client, clinical trials. If we can really move a needle there, And there again, for clinical trials, we have to think about pan-European clinical trials, work together, all that. I think that's really where we can make a difference still. And I'm not sure, and that's then a question also to the others of the panel, is this on the radar? And I know, of course, the MDR Act and Biotech Act is working in that way, but is there also, will there be funds for doing exactly that? And it's a very precise challenge that we have there, that our companies have. So I think it could be very specific in how we can align that to their needs.
Maybe a solution, is this under radar? Answer to that question was also presented in the conference, Kazimierz, that you said you wanted to discuss the results of.
Yeah, that's the difficult question, because the report we have prepared after the conference covers a lot of this type of issues, pointing out to those strengths and opportunities which the community which have been discussing in Krakow pointed out. So again, there's access to, let's say, access to clinical trials. That was one of them. We are not so strong, so much developed like Flanders or Munich area in this biopharmaceutical sector, but still there are some we have, for example, in our cluster the most dynamic biotech company which is developing their own pipeline of drugs, and they are reporting, I can support this, they are reporting this problem, in which way they can provide the clinical trials, why they have to do clinical trials in USA and other countries, not in Europe, especially not in Poland, if so tell. But that's some kind of, this is some kind of barrier for their development. Second one, I would say, regarding, which comes from the report, is this inequality about the access to funds across the Europe. We don't have, as I agree with our partners, that the majority of funds are being are in USA, and they are much more easier to access. And if there is something in Europe, again, in Europe, it's concentrated around few spots. And that's for us personally. It's personally, I mean, in terms of cluster, it's also the bottleneck in which way we can start some similar good developments without having difficulties, having problems with attracting those investors who might be interested, but they prefer to stay in some as I told you, spots in Europe. So these are the bottlenecks we have discussed, or they came out in the report.
May I mention something with regard to the clinical trials?
Yes, please.
We have been in Sweden collaborating with Spain to try to learn how they are doing, because they are better than us in. And one of the things that we have learned is, for instance, they have hospital exemption for example, ATMPs, which we don't have, and they also have incentives to the clinicians themselves, which we don't have. So I think that a very concrete idea is to actually start sharing business models and best practices within Europe. Why is it working better in a country rather than the other? What is that makes some countries better with that than others? Might be a very concrete step. Learning from the ones that are more successful.
I was thinking there is a question in the chat that I feel is probably directed to Mr. Marovka. As he said, the flagship actions of clinical research investment plan comes in 2026. Would this plan also entail parts of the 28th regime? Mate is asking. Ferenc, would you want to take that one?
Yes, so, well, I think thanks for the very interesting comments that the panelists shared with me, and I think I can just confirm that they do exist, but I have to mention an example that this year we have been to a bio conference in the US in Boston, and we had a huge stand, a huge booth with several startups from Europe, but also the institutions were represented. And surprisingly, I got a lot of questions from US participants that tell me, how can I move to make business in Europe? Tell me, how can I work in Europe? So they were I noticed an interest that because certainty, uncertainty is increasing in the US, FD is changing, funding is different, business environment is becoming different, that there is an interest to come Europe. So we try to recognize it and we try to capture it. Some things we can do at the EU level. Clinical trials, super important, and we see that Europe's share in big clinical trials is declining compared to US and China. So that is basically a number one issue for the Biotech Act 1. That explains the urgency. We also notice that some of the issues are at probably at the regulation level, so the EU-wide regulation level, but others are really in national or authority-specific implementations. If you just think about the ethics board, which can be very different in one country or in even one region than in the others, which is a little bit, hindering multi-country clinical trials. What we noticed, that Europe has a super good quality in clinical trials, so investors like it, but we are just too slow to run a multi-site clinical trial, and we will try to address it, from the legislation level, whatever can be changed. And what is in the life science strategy is not that. It is an additional supporting infrastructure to help it implement, beyond and also for the funding. I think we also see this huge problem, that funding is way more available in the US, but it's not government funding. It's private investors that are investing there. And I think this is what we have to unlock. And this is the kind of the idea between the competitiveness fund, between the new instruments that we have at the EIC. It's not only, giving grants, but maybe equity investment and changing the rules that pension funds or other institutional investors have to or can put their money in European startups and businesses.
Thank you. Ralph, you were raising your hand. Did you want to expand on that?
Very brief comment, and I very much appreciate what Ferenc said. I mean, let's not mistake, and I think we all know what's happening politically in the United States and why there is let's say, a pull over to Europe. It's currently not because we are so brilliant compared to the US. I think there is a window of opportunity, as I would see this, to really attract investors, scientists, startups to bring over here. But we have to get our things in order as a continent, as a union, to offer at least similar attractive situations to our scientists, to our professors. We see this on a regular basis. But we also see some that say, well, if I balance everything, the investment opportunities, the long-term perspective I have in the United States, and what is still this kind of fragmented and uncertain situation in Europe, I think still a lot of people shy away from making the final step to Europe, and I think this is something we need to really work on, and I hope that we all use this window of opportunity for 1, 2, 3 years, how long this will ever take, or longer or shorter, to really build this continent of life science. Because I think in terms of AI and data, we are far behind the other two sides of the world. But I think we have to implement and translate all of that, and this is our chance now.
Thank you very much. I will ask for a final comment from two speakers, Kazimierz and Anne, and then we will move on to discussing financial opportunities. There were some comments in the chat. Maybe we would like to include them into this final discussion, but I'm trying to find them. For attracting clinical trials, we will need to unify the regulation. Alenka is saying, Mate was saying the STEP regulation and ECF proposal promotes technological aspects while also seeing the possible synergies between different silos. with the simplification that goes with unifying several funds into ECF, promote One Health aspect? This is a very specific question. Not sure we have enough time for that, but maybe I would ask Anne to make a comment that would somehow include that question.
Yeah, I think I think for sure, Ferenc already alluded to it. The urgency is on the agenda of the European Commission. I think it's really clear that we need to move fast and that we need to put things in place to make this work. If I go back to the question or the steps that are being included, I'm not really positioned to answer that, I think, but I can only agree with what has been put here. It's an urgency that we move fast, and I agree that we see that that there is interest. I've seen. I was in Boston as well, and I met with American investors, and they are interested in Europe, and they're very interested in Europe, looking at our innovations. Because they feel, and I think R&D in Europe is strong, but this also means that they also come with alternative motives. So I think we have to act together and make sure that we are strong and don't be misguided by the fact they're interested in Europe. We shouldn't. They sometimes see the division that we have in Europe. They see that as an opportunity for them to come in and use that also to their benefit. It's a business at the end of the day, and I think that's why it's so important for us to make sure that everything's in line and that we build stronger. And I do agree with Iris. She's not here anymore, but she mentioned changing, because that's the same conclusion we had. Spain is doing really good at the clinical trial level. So let's exchange business models that work. What can they do? She mentioned a few things. So I think learning from what is happening, and that's maybe also who am I, of course, but small advice here. There are already in many of the clusters are really very dedicated, and there is good work happening. If somehow we could find a way to share more of the success stories in the business models, in the plans that we see in the different European countries, and I know we try to bring it together in the Euro clusters, but there's still separate things that are happening, and it would be good if we could have more exchange there. But it's also upon us to do that. But definitely, let's build upon the small successes and bring it together, I think.
Thank you, Kazimierz. Exchange, would that help?
Yes, of course. When I was preparing to this meeting, I've been preparing myself from the perspective of biomanufacturing, because that was the previous subject. And the one thing we have discussed here is that the EU, which is going on actually, should boost this strategic autonomy in biomanufacturing and critical technology production, because we have to be kind of independent. The recent lessons actually taught us what is important. Let's not forget about the political situation we have in the behind the east border, and this let's say motion or strategic focus on being prepared for the worst, for example, by developing the dual-use technologies, or developing those types of supporting those types, creating those types of value chains which will be self-sufficient and also agile, because we have to be prepared for many different types of scenarios, including actually those scenarios which include not only war, but for example another type of pandemics or whatever. And the last pandemic taught us that a lot of things is possible when we speed up the development, and we are better organized in terms of achieving the results which can be developed here in Europe without waiting for others to support us. So the conclusion is that we have a great potential, and this potential has to be better organized in terms through collaboration. One of the ideas, for example, we have here is that regarding biomanufacturing is that there should be some kind of European pan-European network of this test beds or test sites in biomanufacturing created to provide the better access for those who are developing technologies in that area to test their solutions and most probably later on scale solutions. That's something which is missing in Europe, and that's something which has also been discussed in Krakow.
Thank you so much for these discussions and for so many, I would say, quite specific solutions to how we can proceed further on. Thank you for everybody for your questions, because there were quite a few specific questions and specific proposals and specific comments that agreed with other comments. So it was very interactive. Thank you very much for this. Thank you for this discussion. Thank you for joining. Thank you for allocating your time in your very busy schedules. Good luck with all of the important work that you are doing. We will now stop here and we will move to Nina Hopman again, who will remind us of the funding opportunities that exists for all of you. So back to you, Nina.
Thanks, Jimina, and many thanks to all the speakers. Very interesting discussion. Yeah, just to quickly close the session, there are some calls open that might be of interest to the cluster community, which is why we want to highlight it. First, the call for proposals for health data for biotech innovation, leveraging the European health data space. So this is an action to accelerate the development and deployment of AI and digital solutions in the biotech sector driven by health data. And they should focus on creating multi-stakeholder platform, identify and prioritize the most promising AI and digital applications, analyze challenges and barriers, and develop concrete recommendations to support the coordinated development of the European health data space for AI and digital solutions. The deadline for this call is the 6th of January, and you can find the information on the EU funding and tenders portal. Another call with the deadline on the 20th of January is expanding investment ecosystems. We've talked about investments also today in the life sciences, and this is a call where the actions should propose business acceleration services and help the providers and then investment networks and clubs and innovation hubs located in less developed innovations ecosystems facilitate the entry of foreign funders from strong innovators to those regions. So the activities can include greater market orientation or introduction programs, roadshows, organization of business forums, conferences and events, as well as repository of best practices for market entry facilitation. Horizon call also published on the EU funding and tenders portal, as I said, deadline in January. Scaling up deep tech ecosystems. Scaling up was also a topic in the discussion today. This is a call to strengthen inclusive, interconnected, and effective innovation ecosystems across the EU by linking actors, regions, and resources. It should promote collaboration between innovation leaders in less advanced territories and help boost competitiveness, sustainability, and cohesion. So there are a lot of topics that can be funded under this call, looking, of course, at different aspects of fossil fuels, food security, but also mastering digital transformation and healthcare. Circularity are also topics under this call. Same deadline, 20th of January, published on the EU funding portal. And last but not least, let us also mention the support for Ukrainian tech SMEs and startups. When we're talking about deepening the European market, this is also an opportunity for Ukrainian SMEs to develop and accelerate transformative technologies that can be of use. This is a call to address this innovation gap by focusing on high-impact innovations, for example, AI, robotics, biotech, cybersecurity, and other priority areas for Ukraine. And the companies can get grants of up to €5 million. Around 40 projects should be funded under this call. The deadline is end of November 26th, and also funded. You can also find it on the funding. Thanks, Jamila, and back to you.
Thank you so much for that thorough list of opportunities that are all also in the chat. The next session on cluster stocks will be on the 26th of November on Joint Cluster Initiative, presenting the new Euro clusters. So do not forget to register for that one if you haven't done so by now. Do continue the discussion on the social networks. LinkedIn. A LinkedIn group is a very important platform where you can be doing that. Also, you can go to other social networks like X or Facebook. The list you can see here. If you post anything, do not forget to add the hashtag ECCP or EU cluster stocks and continue discussing the relevant topics there. Thank you very much for joining today, and I hope to see you some other time during the cluster stocks too. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye for now.